You know, there are times where I have to talk about the Senators, and I feel bad. I feel bad for fans of the Ottawa Senators, and it's usually about Eugene Melnyk. He said something, something's happened as a result of something he said, or a trade's been made, or something. And right now, the Ottawa Senators, bless their hearts, they're back in the news. So it's like Edmonton is this problem, and every time Edmonton has problems and things are falling apart for them, Eugene goes, "Why aren't we in the news? All right, I'm gonna go talk to somebody. That'll get us back in the news." Now he doesn't talk to the press like he used to. Used to be he talked to the press all the time. Now, as a result of the fallout from last December, where he insinuated that if things don't turn around with attendance in Ottawa, he might be willing to move the franchise. He got mad because the reporters reported what he said, and those of us that listened to the words he said, listened to the words he said rather than what he meant, which was he'll never leave Ottawa. Anyways, so because I watched that live and I remember thinking, wow, he's talking openly about moving the Senators. This is interesting. And then the media picked up on it, and then Eugene Melnyk got mad because we listened to the words he said. So you're supposed to listen to the words he didn't say. Well, last night he said some words, so as a result of the fact I can't hear the words he didn't say, let's look at what he did. And Melnyk announced this at the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto, which is Ottawa's top rival. And when games are played in Ottawa, very often, if you're listening to a Toronto-Ottawa game and you're not watching the TV, you'd swear it's in Toronto. And it doesn't matter how successful the Senators are, you always have a ton of Toronto fans in that crowd because of the proximity between the two cities and because Leaf fans will just pay exorbitant amounts to watch their team. The Senators will be all in again, insinuating they were all in before, for a 5-year run of unparalleled success. That's weird. For a 5-year run of unparalleled success. Do you know what most franchises go for? Continuing excellence. Continued success. And not having to go through the rebuild process and trying to retool and keep going. Now, it is impossible for any team to stay there, especially when you've got 15 out of 31 teams that miss the playoffs right now, and it's going to be 16 when Seattle comes in. Where this team plans to spend close to the NHL salary cap from 2021 to 2025. So from 2021 till 2025, they plan to spend to the cap. Now, the interesting thing with this is, does he mean the 2020 season or the 2021 season? So is it one more year of pain he's promising the fans, or 2 more years? And then the funny thing is to announce, we're going to spend to the cap. Spending to the cap doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot. The teams right now with the top cap hits, Detroit is number 1. They have 0 cap space. The Washington Capitals, who according to Cap Friendly, their current cap space is $411,000. Now, because of long-term injured reserve, the Red Wings have $3.1 million in cap space. Technically, they're over the cap, but because of long-term injured reserve, they get around it. The Edmonton Oilers currently have $4.2 million in cap space, but that's again due to IR. The Anaheim Ducks have $1.1 million in cap space. Look where Anaheim is right now. The Pittsburgh Penguins have $5.8 million in cap space. Again, this is because of LTIR. Dallas Stars have $1.7 million in cap space. They're spending $80.1 million this year for a team that may not make the playoffs and has trouble scoring goals. San Jose Sharks have $3.6 million in cap space. Calgary 4.1. St. Louis 4.2. The Kings 5.3 thanks to LTIR. Tampa 5.4. My point is simple. We're going to spend to the cap or near the cap doesn't mean you're going to win. And who's the money going to? Because we're going to get to that. Melnyk announcing this in Toronto. That's weird. Francesco Aquilini goes to Edmonton and announces plans for the Canucks for next season. To a bunch of people who say, why didn't you do this in Vancouver? Eugene, why aren't you doing this in Ottawa? They're not nice to me in Ottawa. They say mean things. They take me at my word. Stone, Duchesne, and DeSingle are, of course, the big names, right? And Pierre Dorian's come out and said he wants to keep Stone and Duchesne and get them signed long-term, which means Eugene Melnyk is giving the green light to keep those players. The problem is whether or not those players want to stick around. I think Stone wanted to see things get better with Ottawa this year, and it kind of sort of hasn't. So I'm not sure if I'm Mark Stone, if I want to, take the rest of my career and spend it in Ottawa, and I'm just being honest. And if I'm Matt Duchene, while we've all talked about how Duchene goes from Colorado to Ottawa and he brings the losing with him, Duchene hasn't been the problem. He will have no problem finding a suitor this summer as a UFA, and I don't know why they would stick around based on everything you see around this team. Ottawa wanting to keep those two and Ryan Dzingel. Dzingel will likely come in for a lower cap hit than the other two and could end up being a huge bargain. But look back to 2 years ago. So when they went to the Stanley Cup semifinals, almost the finals, Erik Karlsson's gone, Hoffman's gone, Turris gone, Brassard gone, Mathot gone. I talked about this before in a video not that long ago, so I don't really have to get into that right now. But what this means is that the veteran presence in that locker room, so the veterans that kind of hold it together, just get sent off. And when you look at the pieces that came back, while you add a guy like a Chris Tierney, which is good, Dylan DeMello's been good, and Mikkel Bodker's had his moments as well, none of them make up for losing Hoffman and Karlsson. San Jose fleeced him twice. And then Turris was part, of course, of the Duchene trade. Turris, I think, was most comfortable and played his best hockey in Ottawa. He has not been as effective in Nashville as he was in Ottawa. Of course, they, talked about how greedy he was and how much money he wanted and yada, yada, yada. But he had scored 30 goals for them. He had been an excellent forward for them. Brassard, of course, gets moved out. Mathot ends up going in the expansion draft because, it's all Phaneuf's fault. But you get the feeling that because Vegas made a lot of deals to protect people, they might have been able to find a deal to protect Mathot so that he wasn't the one that gets picked by the Vegas Golden Knights. It was tough for them losing Mathot, which I think affected Karlsson's game negatively. And the other problem you have right now is that these guys who've been moved out of Ottawa, for guys who are about to become unrestricted free agents, let's say you're a big name on a team playing with Karlsson, Mathot, Hoffman, and you go, I've been looking at Ottawa. How bad is it there? What do you think they're going to tell him? What do you think Kyle Turris is going to tell somebody in Nashville? Might be a free agent coming up. Probably just stay out of Ottawa. It's a disaster. And so the reason I mention this is because unrestricted free agents, you look at Tavares. Tavares went to where he wore pajamas watching Toronto because the pajamas were important. But beyond the pajamas and beyond his dad sitting him in his lap to watch the 93 playoffs, bandwagoner, the truth is Tavares goes to Toronto not just because it's his hometown, but because they have a really solid management structure in place. He liked what Kyle Dubas told him. Clearly, Brendan Shanahan's made positive impressions on him. Everything in the Toronto organization is a positive. Ottawa, I don't know. I don't know that they can attract a free agent unless they wildly overpay that UFA. I don't see how Ottawa can talk him into it. If you're Pierre Dorian and you're talking to an extra, let's say Tyler Seguin hadn't renewed in Dallas, so he goes to the free agent market. What would draw Tyler Seguin to Ottawa out of Dallas? And would he sign with Ottawa for any reason other than they offered me a lot more money than the other teams? So now you're probably going to have to overpay UFAs because you're in a Canadian market, so there's higher taxes, and it is not a prestige market. It doesn't have that draw that Montreal has, that Toronto has, a draw that I think Edmonton could take advantage of if they could work it properly. And to some extent, I think almost every Canadian team, Winnipeg, they're winning. So you can talk to a guy and go, hey, come out here and enjoy the winning. And they'll take maybe a little bit less money because they know they're going to win some games. Ottawa doesn't have that. So they don't have the tradition of a Toronto or a Montreal. They don't have the appearance of a winner that a Winnipeg would have or Calgary right now would have. There isn't really a whole lot to entice a free agent. So now, going back to this statement, close to the NHL salary cap, it has to be somebody currently on the team. Now, he may be counting on Stone and Duchene, but if it's 2021, it's going to be a couple years from now. And it is a young league. So it's going to have to be young players you're building around. And these guys are still there as the anchors, sort of like what Blake Wheeler is in Winnipeg, for instance. But while Wheeler's been arguably the MVP in Winnipeg, there's a lot of really good young pieces there. Now, expiring this year for Ottawa, you've got, of course, Stone, Duchesne, and Dzingel, and it's mentioned almost every day. But you've got PRV, who's had a half-decent run going on recently. Colin White's an RFA. Cody Cece's an RFA, and he's got arbitration rights. And there have been a lot of rumors about Cece being available. And it's funny, I hear it on TSN. Cody Cece's available, and my answer is, of course he is. He's arguably paid too much right now. He's a restricted free agent this summer, meaning he may want more. And we're not sure if Cece's top 2, top 4, top 6. Odds are he's never going to be a top 2. How much is he worth? It's no surprise to me that Ottawa's made him available. And then you've got Nilsson, the goaltender they just got from Vancouver. He's an unrestricted free agent this summer as well. He could end up getting re-signed with Ottawa, but that's the other problem for the Senators, is going forward after this season with Craig Anderson clearly aging, because that's what people do. Time is an arrow. It's not a winding road. It's an arrow. And so Anderson at this stage is probably better off as a 1B rather than a 1A, and they're overplaying him. So Nilsson comes in to help fix that. But who in the organization is going to be that next starting goaltender? Maybe that's where some of the spending to the cap comes from. But what goalie... Like Bobrovsky. This summer, Bobrovsky's a UFA. What in the world could Ottawa offer him that he'd go, you know what's better than Columbus? Ottawa. Right. Now, for upcoming talents, you got Logan Brown, who's playing for Belleville. You've got Alex Formanton. And you've got Drake Batherson. Those are 3 upfront guys who they're going to be counting on to be top 6. Christian Wolanin has looked very good in his call-ups, which makes it baffling to me that he gets sent down at all. I would not send Christian Wolanin to the minors, period. And Philip Gustafsson, I think, is viewed as potentially a future starter. His numbers in the American League, not fantastic, but that really doesn't make a big difference. Carter Hart's numbers had been middling at points this season in the AHL too. He's turned out to be pretty good. Thatcher Demko, on and off, middling. So AHL numbers don't necessarily mean that Gustafsson won't end up being that future starter. But the problem is unparalleled success. Yeah, I can tear this thing apart because it just doesn't work. Is there an owner in the league or a GM somewhere that's saying, we're never going to be very good? Nah, it's not a thing. So, as weird as the statement is, the timing's also weird. It's February 7th. We're 2 weeks away, or less than 3 weeks, I should say, away from the trade deadline. And he's coming out and going, we're going to be good in a couple years. Don't forget. Who is this message for? Is it for the season ticket holder that's saying, you know what, screw this team, I'm done? Is it for the media? So they have something else to talk about? I guess that qualifies for me doing this video. Who's it for? Is it for the players? So the players in the locker room, like for instance, I don't know, Stone and Duchesne might go, okay, yeah, we can get on board with that. Or are these guys going to look and go, you know, we've got some productive years left. We'd like to spend them with a team that has a chance to win. And that's, honestly, I have no problem with players doing that. I know. There are fans who get mad because a guy looks at an organization and goes, I'm just not going to win here, and decides to go the free agency route or demand a trade, whatever they do. And demanding a trade, it depends how you do it. This past week we saw in the NBA how not to do it. Whew, that was just stupid. And then LeBron, just anyways. But that's a whole other issue. That's just baffling, bewildering. But Ottawa's got a major problem. If you're going to be a contender in a few years, you got to make sure you're running it properly now. You don't go into a store and see they're sold out of everything, and their stock is all wrong, and they don't look like they're managed very well. And then when the guy says, yeah, it's probably going to be a disaster for a couple of years, but 3 years from now, boy, I tell you, this is going to be great. Because we're going to keep doing things the way we're doing them right now. 3 years from now, it's going to be awesome. they're done. That's not how it works. You're not going back. And it kind of feels like that's what's happening with Ottawa, is that they want to do the Everything is Awesome song from Lego Movie, and nobody's singing with them. And it's just awkward. But Ottawa tends to make things awkward. So there you go. Let me know what you guys think. If you're an Ottawa fan, how strange does this story continue to get? And what do they do during deadline time? And do they end up managing to sign any of these guys? Or do they end up saying, we're done? It's going to be a very interesting time for Ottawa. And interesting doesn't normally mean tremendously successful, with unparalleled success as you spend close to the salary cap in today's National Hockey League. Because spending money just for the sake of spending money, Bobby Ryan. The last time Ottawa did that was Bobby Ryan. That Bobby Ryan contract was because fans were mad at seeing veteran guys leave the team and have success elsewhere. So they signed Bobby Ryan to a contract that at the time people said that's too much money and term for Bobby Ryan. But Ottawa wanted to sell you on hope for the future. And it's a bad contract. So that's my major problem too, is that there are times when Ottawa's had a chance to really build, and they've had problems. So let me know how you guys feel about the long-term success of the Ottawa Senators, and what can be done if Eugene Melnyk is going to stick around for a long time. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. Just tap upon this video, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.